What do you know of our ways?
Just what I've seen on the drive from Hammersmith.
Then I will talk to you as if...
As if I'm from another planet.
We were almost beginning again.
How?
How did we begin again?
Yes.
Well, people had got into a vicious circle of producing things. They did it so well that they let an elaborate system of buying and selling build up, called the world market, which forced them to make more and more stuff. Now, they couldn't free themselves from making necessary things.
Of course.
But they only needed so many coats and tables and loaves of bread, so they created a never-ending range of sham necessities, which became, under the rules of the world market, as important as the real necessities.
What are they making here?
Hard to say. Here, have one.
What is it?
这个是把柠檬片打入啤酒瓶的工具。
A tool for getting a wedge of lime into a beer bottle, apparently. Happy Christmas.
Is it Christmas?
Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, it doesn't matter.
Thanks.
Oh.
打破了，没关系。
And because these things soon break and are thrown away, or are thrown away before they break...
Excuse me, mate.
Oh, sorry.
They all have to be collected and buried or recycled, which creates a huge burden of work that has to be done to keep the system going.
I remember.
And while some people have meaningful jobs, many do meaningless non-jobs they don't want. Making, distributing, managing, advertising, financing, selling, transporting, and ensuring things nobody wants.
我们必须发印这个订单。
What did she say?
She has to ship this order.
你现在就把这完成。
What am I meant to be making?
Money. Everything's sacrificed to this making of money. Leisure, love, health, education. Basic needs for food, clothing, shelter. Everyone.
What this would do is to safeguard the UK part of the exchanges from any future changes in EU or Eurozone legislation.
Even the rich and powerful are cast into the jaws of the world market. The labour-saving devices that were invented,
Isabel's snacks are in the fridge. Can you unload the dishwasher before you go?
to create more leisure time.
Sorry?
I'm not asking you to do a lot. When did you last do it?
I don't know.
Created time for more work.
Look, I have to go or I'll miss my train. Bye, girls.
Bye.
And the world market grew with what it fed on.
And people just put up with it?
They did, but not forever. In 2008, there was a great crash.
Good, strong banks are essential for every family and for every business in the country. And extraordinary times call for the bold and far-reaching solution that the Treasury has announced today.
And we have it, the statement. In the last few seconds, it has hit the screens of the stock exchange.
The system was in trouble. Government stabilised it by printing money and burying debt.
When a ship is sinking, you send out the lifeboats. You don't argue about who has steered it into an iceberg.
And transferring the pain onto welfare recipients, public sector workers, pensioners, and future generations.
In tough economic times, we have to make difficult choices about priorities for public spending and strike the right balance between universal and targeted support.
They raised the cost of going to university, so only the richest could afford it. Raised the retirement age, dismantled services.
I remember.
Do you?
Yes, I remember.
We know there will be difficult decisions and we'll have to go through every part of the welfare budget, but we believe just as we've saved 20 billion in welfare in this Parliament, we will be able to find a further 10 billion of welfare savings in the next Parliament.
Wages and living standards were driven down.
I think the global financial crisis is what drove borrowing up.
Did you borrow?
Yeah, well, the
much?
figure was too high by the end of our time in government as a result of the global financial crisis.
The global debt of households, banks, companies and states rose to 3 times the global GDP.
David Cameron, do you know how many food banks there were in this country when you came to power?
I don't have the exact figures, but I know that usage of food banks has gone up, and there are many amazing volunteers who man those food banks and provide an important service.
There were 66 when you came to power. There are now 421. 900,000 people took food parcels last year, free food parcels.
But people were told it was the only way.
2016 is the year when we can get down to work and make the lasting changes Britain so badly needs. Or it will be the year we look back at as the beginning of the decline. This year, quite simply, the economy is mission critical.
I remember it all from when...
When you were living on that other planet?
Can you sign this for me, please?
Yes, sure, of course.
People started to protest. They marched because they cared, marching not because they could imagine a new world, but because they wanted one. And there was a general strike.
Yes.
The first for nearly 100 years. More than 1 million people gathered in London.
More than 1 million.
But it wasn't until the second collapse that things reached a head. There were riots, or threats of riots, everywhere. People were hungry. Local councils and food banks tried to feed everyone. A huge crowd assembled in Trafalgar Square, too big for the police to handle.
Soldiers!
Soldiers?
Soldiers poured in from the northwest corner. They jammed the crowd together, and scarcely had they grasped the soldiers being there when...
More soldiers?
Coming from the Houses of Parliament and the embankment.
Can't move!
We're trapped.
An officer on horseback came out from the ranks on the south and read from a piece of paper.
I can't hear him.
We can't hear you.
An order to disperse.
They want us to disperse.
Stay where you are!
And a warning that if they did not, he had a legal right to fire on the crowd, and that he would do so. The officer went back into the ranks, and then...
They're going to fire!
Throw yourselves down, they're going to fire!
But no one could get down. The crowd was so tightly packed.
Fire!
In that minute of shooting, 2,000 people were killed, and 6 soldiers.
Did it end the revolution?
The massacre began it. And all this time, almost without us noticing, the world had been changing. Information technology had blurred the lines between work and free time, loosening the relationship between labor and wages. Collaborative production was growing. People were doing things together, for free. There was talk of kindness, of paying it forward instead of a life of debt. The world was starting to move to a different rhythm. Parallel currencies, time banks, cooperatives, self-managed spaces. But in our mind, the future still was not clear. We were trapped in our minds more than our towns and workplaces, held between the possibility of free, abundant goods and information and a system of monopolies, banks and governments keeping things private, scarce and commercial. We still told dystopian stories and made films about the apocalypse. Dangerous visions prefiguring the breakdown of the world market. A breakdown that was now becoming clear to everyone. The death knell for capitalism had sounded, and the new order, so recently seen as a hopeless cause, was triumphant. The spirit of the new days was delight in the world, love of the earth on which we dwell, with nature bettered by humankind. We dealt with climate change, managed our aging population, understood that natural energy can provide for our needs, that there is enough food to feed the growing population if we eat differently, stopped chasing endless growth, and we faced finiteness, because we know that 1 and 1 makes 2. It was just that we chose, for a long time, to pretend there was no such thing as 2.